So I have to say it's a rather remarkable place, because when you've been to the toilet, eventually what you do ends up here at the Bromley Treatment Centre, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Flows through the pipes and pump stations and gets treated here before being discharged in the ocean outfall 3 kilometres offshore.
It's an interesting job for anybody who must work here. It's also a very smelly job.
Yeah, the environment that the guys work in is generally not too bad, so because we have odour containment on the smelly parts of the process, so that means we collect the foul air and pipe it away to special treatment areas. So you know, the working conditions out here aren't too bad. It's not everyone's cup of tea though.
No, I can imagine it's not everyone's cup of tea.
Can I just say, I have never smelt anything so bad. It is just, it stinks all around.
What does it take to work at a treatment plant, do you think?
You've got to have a good sense of humour. So you know, the people that I've worked with in the water and wastewater industries, you know, they're endowed with a good sense of humour.
It actually smells like Thailand a little bit, with all the warm, festering sewage that you can smell.
Thailand?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll go and look at the first part of the process, which is the screenings room. So this is where the raw wastewater comes in, and the gross matter, or the larger parts of matter and obstacles, gets taken out before it goes into the treatment tanks. So the screens that you just saw before, this is the material once it's been compressed. So we take the water out of it because this material ends up at Cape Valley landfill and we don't want to truck water. So this material is grit and stone, rags, hair, anything that the screens can take out. So,
No false teeth?
well, you can have a look through there if you like.
So you want to show me something else that's kind of disgusting?
Well, we don't consider it disgusting. It's just part of the wastewater process.
Yeah, very nice. What
What happens in the with the wastewater from domestic and industrial premises, we get a lot of fats and oils come through as well. And whilst we have bylaws to limit the amount that gets in the sewer, you can see in the tanks down here what look like dumplings. They're actually balls of fat, congealed fat. And
That's balls of fat?
Yeah. And so those get taken out of the process and put into our digestion process, where the fat's broken down to release energy, which is used in the plant to power the plant.
Alright, so what are we looking at here? It stinks. Hurry up.
This is the second stage of the process, so called primary sedimentation. So we take the water that's come from the screening room that we just looked at, comes into these tanks. The organic matter drops and the heavier matter drops to the bottom of these tanks and gets scraped out, and then it forms sludge which gets fed to the digesters for digestion. And so what we're doing from here on through the process is we're separating more and more of the solid material from the liquid material as we go through. So we're cleaning up the water as it goes through.
That's what we like to hear, cleaning up the water.
So after the primary process, which is where we're dropping out the organic solids, the liquid flows up to the big tanks behind us, and some of it also goes through these tanks over here where we're getting air into the liquid and oxidising the organic matter in there, and we use bugs to do that. So for the bugs to grow successfully and grow the right sort of bugs, you've got to have food and the right amount of oxygen there. So these processes are about giving those characteristics so that we break down the organic matter, which cleans up the water. So you can see in the tank here the myriad diffusers. So we blow compressed air into these diffusers, and on the tank next door you can see the bubbles rising to the surface. So there's a lot of micro bubbles blowing into the water. The bacteria within the water stream there, they need that oxygen to break down the food in the wastewater. So that's all part of the process of cleaning up the wastewater. So we break down the carbon and compounds in the wastewater, and the bugs thrive, and we keep the ratio of bugs to food under control by the amount of sludge we pump out the tanks. So this clarification process is the second to last treatment process before we discharge through the ocean outfall. And you can see the clarity of the water is pretty good here. And that'll be well within the resource consent parameters for the discharge for the treatment plant. From here it goes over to the oxidation ponds, which most people are familiar with. And in the oxidation ponds, the natural sunlight disinfects any bugs remaining in the wastewater and gets the disinfection parameter below the resource consent before it goes out to the ocean. So the treatment process is very effective. So during the earthquakes, both September, February and June, we had a lot of problems with these tanks. February did a lot of damage, and it took us over a year to get these tanks back in service, or more than a year. And so we had to get one back on as fast as we could. So we had to put divers into the bottom of these tanks to help fix the mechanisms that were jammed on the bottom of the tank. So, you know, it's a pretty difficult job at any time, but you know, when you've got sludge in the bottom of the tanks, these guys are diving in dry suits, trying to free up the mechanism so that we could get them running. There's also big pipes under the ground here which got damaged, and to find out what damage was in them, we had to put divers down through those pipes to examine the damage and how we were going to fix it. So,
and I thought the police dive squad had a tough job.
They didn't volunteer for out here. So this is the biomass coming from the tanks over there. It whirls up through the centre of the clarifiers. As it spreads out in the tank, it slows down. The little fence around the outside is to make the water slow down so that the biomass sinks to the bottom of the tank. From there, it gets fed back, the microorganisms, which is biomass, gets fed back into the tanks, and some of it gets sent over to the digesters. So we've got to keep the food and the bugs in balance. Yeah, so what you're about to see now is the final stages of what we call the solids handling processes.
The solid handling process?
Yes. So
sounds lovely.
We've seen the water being cleaned up,
yes.
And so as we take the solids out, we put them in the digesters to get the energy out of them,
yeah.
And then we thicken them up by taking as much water out of them as we can. So when they come from the digesters, it's about 4% solids, 96% water. So the final stage of the solids handling is that we take the biomass from the thickening process, and then we feed it into the dryer. In the dryer it goes into what's like a big oven, and heat's put into that oven. It evaporates the moisture out of that, and then we get a dry pelletized product at the end of that. So this is the final product out of the drying process. So this material
What are you doing? What's that?
This material is sterile. It's been through a heat process which sterilises the product, so there's no bugs in this. Mm-hmm. And this product gets used for mine site rehabilitation on the west coast. So this room here is a control room where we control the wastewater plant from and monitor all the water and wastewater pump stations on the networks, and so they control the demand on the water supply, what the reservoirs are doing. And this is really the nerve centre from where we respond in incidents. So very busy place and stressful environment during the earthquakes, and contractors are also sort of controlled out of here. And this is manned 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Yeah, thanks Chris for coming down and showing some interest in the running of the Christchurch wastewater treatment plant. So, you know, the staff are always pleased to see the public and interest in the process here, and we pride ourselves in being number one and looking after your number twos.